She entered that mansion for the first time, as if stepping into a world that wasn't hers. With her eyes downcast, simple uniform, and a heart full of bills to pay, Sofia could hardly imagine that this job would change everything. On that rainy day, she just wanted to keep the job. She just didn't know she would end up falling in love with the man who lived on the other side of the marble walls. Arthur Delgado. Owner of a hotel chain, always impeccable, always serious, always unreachable. But fate doesn't need much to turn a story upside down. It only took a broken cup, a nervous apology, and that first genuine look for Sofia to feel something she would never allow herself to feel. After all, he was the boss, and she, just the maid. Sofia had always worked hard. Since she lost her parents, she supported her younger sister with small jobs. When she got the position of maid at the Delgado mansion, she felt it was her chance for stability. The house was huge, with hallways that echoed silence and windows that let in the light, and loneliness. Arthur was almost never there. When he appeared, he was polite but distant. She heard his footsteps upstairs, the sound of piano keys late at night, and sometimes found herself imagining what his life was like behind those closed doors. But she quickly pushed those thoughts away. She had no right to allow herself to feel anything for him. It wasn't right, nor possible. It was on a Tuesday afternoon that everything changed. Sofia was cleaning the bookshelf in the library when, accidentally, she knocked over a porcelain cup. The noise was sharp. She froze. When Arthur entered the room, she began to apologize nervously. But instead of yelling or firing her, he smiled. A shy smile, almost relieved. It had been a long time since anyone broke the silence of this house. The phrase kept hammering in her head, and from that moment on, something changed. He started greeting her more kindly, sometimes even asking questions about her life. Small gestures that meant everything to Sofia, and every time he was around, the world seemed lighter and more dangerous. Over time, their conversations became more frequent. He found her reading a book her mother liked, and they started talking about literature in the late afternoon. Sofia discovered that Arthur also carried pain. He lost his wife 5 years ago and had since buried himself in work. She didn't know what was more dangerous, falling in love with someone so wounded, or realizing that he was opening up only to her. One night, while he was playing the piano, Sofia quietly entered the room. He noticed. He stopped playing, and looked at her with a tenderness that made her forget the floor she was cleaning. For a few seconds, neither of them said anything. But in that exchange of glances, there were already too many words. Sofia began to avoid meetings. She felt guilty. She didn't want to feed an illusion. She knew her place. She knew what people would say. A maid falling in love with her employer? How absurd. But the heart is not moved by rules. She thought about him on the buses, in the markets, in the early mornings when she lost sleep. She wanted to escape that feeling, but everything in her was drawn to him. One day she found an old letter from his wife in his room. She read only the beginning, not wanting to intrude. And there, she understood something. Arthur still loved the past, but he was trying to move forward. And maybe she was in the way of this new beginning. On the eve of Arthur's birthday, Sofia decided to prepare something special. A simple cake, a discreet letter, and a book he had always wanted to read. She had saved for months to buy it. When he saw the surprise, he didn't say anything immediately. But his eyes were teary. He sat at the table and invited her to share the cake with him. They talked for hours. They laughed. And when she got up to leave, he held her hand. "You are the first person to make this house feel alive again." Sofia swallowed her tears. She said nothing. But in that touch, she felt there was something there, real, unspoken, but present. In the following days, Sofia continued her work, but something changed between them. Arthur started having lunch at home, waited for her in the library, left discreet notes in the book she was reading. They didn't openly talk about what they felt, but lived in a kind of silent dance, where gestures said everything. Months later, he called her to talk in the garden. He said he wanted to start over, with her. That the rules, the positions, the opinions of others didn't matter. Only what they felt mattered. Sofia cried, but this time tears of relief, because the love she thought was impossible was there, simple, true, and finally free to happen. After that conversation in the garden, Arthur and Sofia began to live a silent, delicate relationship, built on complicity. He never forced grand gestures. On the contrary, he respected her time and fears. Sofia, for her part, still felt insecure. She didn't want people to think she was with him out of interest. For that reason, they kept what they felt away from prying eyes. Sometimes, a coffee left beside the desk, or a note hidden under a book, was enough to remind them that there was affection there. But no matter how much they tried to hide it, the house began to change. The servants commented that the boss smiled more, and that the cleaning girl seemed distracted, as if she were thinking about someone. Things changed when Arthur's sister, Helena, came to visit the house. Elegant, strict, and always protective, she quickly realized that there was something between her brother and the employee. In a private conversation with Sofia, she was direct. "You don't belong to this world. You're deluding yourself, and you're going to end up hurting yourself." Sofia swallowed the words like a blow. That night, she thought about quitting. She thought it was the right thing to do. But Arthur noticed her distant look and insisted until she told him everything. When he found out, he was silent for a while. Then he said, "If you leave, it's not her who hurts me. It's you." Sofia no longer had any doubts. Their love deserved to be lived, even if it still needed to be protected. The next day, Sofia decided to continue, but with one condition. She wanted to earn her place on her own merit, without depending on him. She would keep working, but also started studying at night, pursuing an old dream she had left behind, becoming a restorer of antique furniture. Arthur supported her without hesitation. He began lending books, introducing her to people in the artistic field, and became her greatest encourager. It wasn't about depending on a man. It was about growing alongside someone who makes you believe in yourself. And with each step, Sofia became stronger, more confident, and more passionate. Months later, Arthur was honored at a charity event. He invited Sofia to accompany him for the first time as his partner. She hesitated, but went. She looked beautiful, wearing a simple dress that carried an elegance that came from within. When they arrived, everyone noticed. The glances were inevitable, but his gesture was even more unexpected. He held her hand in front of everyone. A small gesture, but full of meaning. There, Sofia realized she didn't need to hide. She was no longer the girl who walked with her eyes down. She was a woman beside a man who admired her. And now the world would see it too. Today, Sofia coordinates a small restoration workshop within a social project funded by Arthur. The two remain together, not in a story of luxury or fairy tales, but in a reality built with respect, patience, and truth. She still walks through the halls of that mansion, but now as part of the history of that place. Their love was not born from perfect encounters, but from sincere glances, courageous decisions, and the genuine desire to become better for each other. Because in the end, true love doesn't care about status. It cares about who is willing to stay, even when it would be easier to leave. Over time, even Helena, Arthur's sister, began to see Sofia in a different light. She quietly observed her brother's transformation. He was lighter, more open, happier. One Sunday afternoon, he invited Sofia for a walk in the garden. The conversation started tense, but gradually became more sincere. Helena admitted that she was afraid of seeing Arthur get hurt again, but she also said she hadn't seen that sparkle in his eyes since his youth. "You brought him back to life," she confessed with a subtle smile. It was the first time Sofia felt that she was truly being accepted. Not because she was trying to fit in, but because her presence there was already part of that new story. On the 1-year anniversary since they met, Arthur prepared a surprise. He asked Sofia to be ready by 8 in the evening without giving any details. She appeared in the garden of the mansion and found a table set under the lights hanging from the trees, with delicate flowers and the aroma of her favourite dish in the air. But what moved her the most was the gift. A brown-covered notebook, with the title engraved in gold. Sofia, the woman who restores everything she touches. Inside there were photos, letters and small mementos from the past year. When she looked up, he said, "You restored not only furniture, you restored my heart." And at that moment, she knew she would never again doubt her worth. If you liked this story, like and share it, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications.